Like everyone wants to point to the thing that was like the hack. The hack was that I wrote 300,000 words on Twitter. I literally just wrote an unbelievable amount. I started at about 500 followers. I showed up every single week for long period of time. I was writing about things I knew and things I understood, things that like I am uniquely qualified to share. And that made a big difference.
I think you focused on Twitter first, and then you really started to compound. And so I want to dive into how that happened initially.
I was working in private equity. COVID hit and I had more time on my hands. So I was kind of trying to like figure out what to do with my spare time. I was stuck at home. I had no social life and I'd always loved writing. What I figured was like, this will be like an interesting hobby. And so I started doing it on the weekends. I had 500 followers at the time. This is like May of 2020. And it was very clear to me early on that there was like some pull for the stuff I was talking about. It started like taking off a little bit and the like positive reinforcement I was getting encouraged me to do more of it. So on the weekends, I was spending a little more time on it and it was continuing to go. For me, at least, one of the big takeaways was like, I never set out to become a creator. I was writing about things I knew and things I understood. And then as I expanded it, I was writing about things I was struggling with, like my own life experiences, problems I was wrestling with, and things like I was really learning by actually doing them in the real world. So I was never like, hey, I read this, in some book and I've never thought about it and let me just like share it with you, or like, here are 10 TED Talks that'll change your life. My whole thing was always, if a 22-year-old kid with no life experience can do this same piece of content, I probably shouldn't share it.
Yeah.
It should really be things that like I am uniquely qualified to share. And that made a big difference. So yeah, Twitter was the first place. I wrote a ton there. My general perspective was like, let me just figure out layers of depth. So if Twitter was like the most surface level, the next layer of depth would be newsletter. So I expanded to newsletter, grew that. Next layer of depth would be book. So I signed the book deal, working on that. And then expanding mediums and like expanding the surface area. So that's, with all the video stuff I do now and kind of growing from there.
You're spending at least 5,000 hours in the first year on this.
Yeah, it was, countless hours. Like there was no hack. People I constantly get asked like, oh, what was the hack? What was the growth hack? What was the, engagement groups? Like everyone wants to point to the thing that was like the hack. The hack was that I wrote 300,000 words on Twitter. Like I literally just wrote an unbelievable amount. And like some of it worked, some of it was duds, some of it was great, like some of it was medium. And that was the real thing, was like I showed up every single week for long period of time. That was it.
You just got to do the work straight up. You didn't have any followers, right? And I think you tweeted something, and then I think it was Chamath or something that shared it. Like, so how did the growth look in the first year?
I started at about 500 followers. I posted my first thread. Nothing happened for the first few hours. I commented it underneath something that Chamath posted. And this is before Chamath was like Chamath. He wasn't super famous yet. He had a decent following, but he wasn't enormous. He then shared my thing and said, this is good. That sort of spiked me to like 2,000 followers maybe. And that was kind of the start. I think by the end, that was May of 2020. By the end of 2020, I was probably at about 75,000 followers on Twitter. That was my only platform though. I didn't have anything else. And then by the time I quit my job, which was May of 2021, I was probably at about 175,000.
I don't think you've stopped tweeting since 2020, right?
Yeah. So yeah, consistency is the foundation of everything. And people, like, this is a common trope. It's true though. Like you just have to keep showing up, and you have to not be so short term that you get discouraged when things don't work, because there are going to be just like valleys where for a long period of time, and like I'm not talking like 1 or 2 posts, like you might go 3 months where like your open rates are really low on a newsletter and you don't know why, or like your engagement's really far down, and you like the people that aren't going to make it are the people that you then see posting like the algorithms changed and it's so bad and like they need to change it back, Elon Musk ruining Twitter. And the really great people, like I had lunch with Mark Manson, the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Amazing guy. He's been around for 20 years, right? Like he's writing Facebook blogs back in the day. He's created all these things. And his whole thing is like, yeah, the algorithms change. Like that's part of the game. That's why it's hard to be here for 20 years. You just have to figure it out. Like you're sitting around complaining about it and like getting down during those valleys versus like figuring out, okay, what works? Like how do I operate at the intersection of what I like and what's working in the algorithm today, rather than just sitting around being like, oh, the thing's changed. This is crap. Elon Musk, change it back.
Got it. And then just to get a little more granular here, the threads, so you're doing 3 per week initially, you're working a full-time job. These have to be taking you a couple hours per thread?
Yeah, early on, I mean, each one was taking me at least 4 hours because I was doing a lot of research to make sure they were really good. I was like refining them a lot. I hadn't built the muscle yet, so it wasn't easy. It wasn't coming quickly.
Here's the thing, like I'll experiment with things because that's kind of my job as a marketer, right? So like on my Twitter, this guy reaches out to me. He's like, hey, we do these threads for people. It's all these other like creators. And it's like, yes, clearly like these are people writing these stories that are super long. And so he does a couple for me. And yes, they get 2 million views or whatever. I'm like, great. It totally doesn't sound like me.
Yeah. I think I know this person. So I've always 100% of the time, I've never had a ghostwriter. I write all my own stuff because I love writing. That's my thing. And this kid wrote a message to one of my close friends, Sean Puri, saying that he did ghostwriting for me. And Sean is one of my close friends. So Sean texted me and was like, hey, does this guy write for you? I'm thinking, I'm like thinking of engaging him on one of my companies or something. And I was like, what? Like, no, absolutely not. And he was like insinuating that he had written for me. And so I reached out to him and I sent him like kind of a joking message and said like, hey, my attorneys will be in touch. And he freaked out. And I was joking, but I just wanted to scare him. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Back to your point on the ghostwriting, like, it goes to my point of when you're creating a piece of content, if you are someone that is actually doing real things in the real world, you should want any piece of content you put out to be something that only you could write. It shouldn't be something that a 22-year-old kid using ChatGPT can write, because then, like, who cares? I mean, I could go around and basically go find interesting things someone else had written that, like, oh, they only have 1,000 followers, but they wrote something good, and I could just repurpose it, write it my own way, and I have 1 million followers. It'll get a whole lot more views than their version did. But, like, if anyone can write, then like what value is that actually creating for me in the long run? It's just like, it's stupid, right? It's like fairy dust.
Yep. It's also not authentic either. I mean, with all the AI stuff coming out, it's like, yeah, you have to either have original stories or experiences, or you have to have original data. So.
I mean, it's kind of my lamentation with the like creator world as it stands today, which like basically when I was getting started, creator or like it wasn't really a thing. It wasn't like a career path, right? Like you could go make some money doing it short term, but it wasn't like, oh, mom, I'm going to go become a creator. This is what I'm going to do. And so when I thought about it, it was all about like real experiences and authentic things that you were doing. Like you had to go do things in the real world and then you could talk about them. Now there's like a lot of, I haven't done the thing, but I'm going to write about it, right? Like a business guru talking about business principles when they live in like a 500 square foot studio and they haven't made any money or had business success is weird. Like that's weird to me, right? Because then you're just like, what you're writing about like someone else's book, basically, if you haven't actually experienced or built the thing. And similarly, like if you're a fitness influencer and trying to build a fitness creator ecosystem, but you're not fit, like, why would I listen to you on that? It's like, it's a weird thing that is that now exists. And so like, if I give advice to anyone that wants to be a creator, it's like, go do the thing in the real world and talk about it along the way. Like you can talk about the journey of doing it and the experience and the struggle and the like successes and the failures. That's interesting content because that's like the path that a lot of people are on. If you're talking about it like you've done it and you haven't done shit, that's just inauthentic, right? That's not real.
Grifter level.
Yeah,
so,
it's not real.
Yeah.